I'd heard about Japan's pet cafes everywhere. They're sold as calm, comforting, a small escape in a busy city. At first glance, it might feel harmless. It's cute. But do you truly believe this otter is excited to call this aquarium its home? Is it cute that this owl cannot fly anymore?
In today's video, I will show you the reality of these pet cafes here in Japan. I will show you various types of pet cafes. They have cafes with what really are wild animals, and that is absolutely not okay. Wild animals should not be closed up in cafes, neither should they be touched or forced to interact with human beings. I want to clarify one thing at the beginning of the video. I am absolutely not okay with these kind of cafes, and I am planning to enter them, yes, but I want to emphasize that I'm not doing this to support them. I'm doing this to really show you what it's like to be in there and to better explain you why this is absolutely not okay. The message of this video is definitely that these places shouldn't be touristic, because that is what they are becoming more and more. People think it's cute to take their pictures with these animals. You see them all over social media, and I just want to make sure that you understand why this is not a good idea to support these kind of cafes. It is really nothing rare to see pet cafes in big cities of Japan. You will see them in all of the big cities, really. And why do they exist? Well, the story is easy. Here in Japan, housing is extremely expensive, and most apartments, especially in the big cities such as Osaka or Tokyo, they are expensive and the apartments are tiny. So there's really not much room there. Besides that, there are lots of regulations. A lot of apartment owners do not allow to have pets in the apartments, so it really isn't easy to have a pet. And yet, of course, in Japan there are many people who would like to have one, or who would like to at least have some contact to animals. And that is where the idea of these pet cafes was invented. They wanted to support the human interaction with pets, which in general is nothing that bad. However, it got more and more popular, and the more niche the cafes were, the better they worked. When they started with cats and dogs, at some point it wasn't enough. They continued, and there were more and more cafes popping up with more and more extraordinary animals, wild animals. And that is where it got extremely out of control, in my opinion. And nowadays, the situation is even worse. Here in Japan, the cute factor is extremely high. And nowadays, this cute factor of Japan is also known internationally. So tourists think things that are cute here in Japan are things they also have to experience to understand the culture and so on. So nowadays, it is not only the Japanese that are enjoying these pet cafes, it's also a lot of tourists that pay for that. Tourists that do not really think about their actions. They think it's cute, they see it, it is something typical here in Japan, so they have to experience it.
I first entered an otter cafe. It actually wasn't a classical cafe as you might imagine now. It was a small room where we sat down on the floor, and they placed an otter that we were allowed to touch in the center. There was a second otter in a tiny aquarium. I'm not an otter expert, but I don't think you need to be an expert to realize that this otter is everything but calm and relaxed. As I was not allowed to film there with a camera, and obviously also wouldn't have been able to openly state my opinion about this cafe, I decided to comment on what I've seen right after I got out of there.
We were allowed to pet the otters and feed them even. So they gave us some instructions on where to pet them. They were also very kind. They explained us a few things. For example, the lady who is the owner of this cafe, she said these are her pets. They have 5 of them in total, and there was the big one in the aquarium. He is the father of the others. She has like an otter family there, and she also seems to love them. Seriously, she seemed to be very kind towards them. She seemed to care about them. She told me they were all born here in Japan. However, when I asked her where do they originally come from, she was like, I don't know, maybe Thailand, maybe India, something like that. However, she also said that you can actually buy these otters in pet stores. I have seen several pet stores already. I have never seen one with otters, but that's what she said.
Most of the otters you see in cafes aren't bred in Japan. They're usually Asian small-clawed otters, a species native to Southeast Asia. And that's where the story gets uncomfortable. For years, these otters have entered Japan through exotic animal trade networks. Some are bred commercially, others are taken from the wild when they are young, before they can survive alone. Once they arrive, they are sold through breeders, brokers, or animal dealers and then distributed to cafes like inventory. In Japan, it's legal to own an otter with the right paperwork, but legality doesn't mean suitability. These animals are highly intelligent, territorial, and naturally solitary or family bonded. In cafes, they are handled constantly, often during the day, even though otters are naturally most active at night. What might seem playful can be chronic stress to them.
This room where we were in, it was tiny, and you could definitely see the otters were running through the room. It was always like they were searching an exit or a place to have space. They switched the otters every few minutes because she said they are tired.
I personally rather had the feeling that after a while the otters stopped performing the way they were supposed to. They were slower and interacted less with the guests. They were less entertaining, I guess, and therefore exchanged.
I also read that quite often these owners of these cafes think they are doing something good to the otters. The truth is that the otters are wild animals, and this is definitely not their natural habitat, not at all. Their space is tiny, they don't have enough room, they cannot take their rest, they do not eat the food they should be eating. And all of this contributes to a whole bigger problem. First of all, these otters are often being smuggled from Thailand, for example, into Japan, which is illegal. And second of all, this whole animal trafficking adds up to a huge problem in the natural habitat of these otters. First of all, today they are on a red list, meaning they are endangered to extinct at some point in their natural habitat. And second of all, since the population there in Thailand is getting smaller and smaller, this also has an impact to the environment because the otters are very important for the environment there. There were a lot of tourists there. Most of them were tourists. So as a tourist, we do have this responsibility to be aware of these kind of things and not support them. And now I want to show you another place, but for that we need to go to Osaka. And we are in Osaka, a city that is all about fun, party, enjoyment. And we are walking towards an owl cafe right now, something that in my opinion should not be for enjoyment, for fun at all. I have strong feelings about going there, to be honest. These are wild animals, birds that are meant to fly.
In Japan, birds of prey can be legally owned with the correct permits. Their legality is what allows owl cafes to exist. The owl cafe really has the character of a real cafe. You enter a cafe where you can get a drink and buy some souvenirs. At first I had to sit down on a table to listen to some instructions on how to behave and interact with the owls in the next room. Owls are wild. Their claws can do serious harm. And yet they still promote to pay some extra money for the unforgettable Harry Potter feeling. After listening to the instructions, I went to a second small room filled with owls. I was allowed to move around freely and yes, even to pet the owls.
To be allowed to enter, I had to pay 2,500 yenes. However, I took the cheap option. There was another option for 2,700 yenes that included to not only touch them, but also to have them on your arm, on your head, to really feel the weight of the owl and take pictures with it, of course. I was only allowed to touch it and to take my photos and videos. However, I didn't touch them. I wouldn't have felt comfortable. I believe these owls are wild animals and they don't want to be touched or petted or anything like that. However, there were lots of people doing this. It is a quite disturbing experience. As you can see that the owls are chained up. They were feeding them at some point, and yet the owls tried to fly sometimes, but obviously weren't able to fly at all. It is harsh light in there, unnatural light obviously, and owls are night active. So with this light and also all the people in there, the sounds, the noises of the people, they are disturbing the resting time of the owls. When owls cannot get the rest they need, they are stressed. This can lead to chronic stress, and this is definitely not good at all for these animals. There are way more of these animal cafes here in Japan. There are also cafes with pigs, with mini pigs. There are cafes with dogs and cats. Those are domestic animals. They are pets actually. However, even in those kind of cafes, remember that also pets need to rest and don't want to be touched by hundreds of people every single day. They have to perform in there so that the cafes can make money with them. Even those cafes that seem to be okay because there are actually pets in there, please do not support them. Once you enter one of these cafes, you are supporting that animals are being sold illegally, that animal population in their natural habitat is going down. You're supporting that the animals do not live in their natural habitat. You're supporting that they are chronically stressed. And yes, I know, I'm aware that I also supported it by entering these cafes. However, I really hope that this video is having a more positive impact than a negative one. And if you know someone that is traveling to Japan, feel free to share this video to make them aware of these things and how bad it actually is. I hope that less and less people will go there, and in the future that somehow we can decrease these kind of cafes here in Japan.
I don't think most people come to these cafes with bad intentions. They come tired, curious, and looking for something gentle in a place that rarely slows down. And maybe that's what makes this so complicated, because the harm here isn't loud. It doesn't look violent. It fits neatly into everyday life. But once you notice it, it's hard to ignore the cost of our comfort. Traveling teaches you a lot about a place. Sometimes it also teaches you what a place has learned to normalize. Seeing this changed the way I will make choices as a visitor in the future.